The movie starts with a scene in the middle of a forest where a few people are talking to each other. After they leave, a metal rod in the ground starts to move, and a person emerges from below the ground as if he have come back to life. This person appears to have parts of his scalp and body decomposed, but he is still alive and begins to walk calmly and leisurely through the forest. As this strange individual roams through the forest, he encounters several animal traps along the way. Following the sounds, he eventually arrives at a house where someone with a gun has just gone inside. Inside the house, he finds a mirror and for a moment is reminded of his childhood memories. We learned from the memory he had seen that his name is Johnny. Then he comes across a gold necklace, but just as he's about to grab it, someone starts shooting. Our resurrected friend effortlessly takes the gun from the shooter, who is so terrified by his appearance and start running away. The bizarre Johnny, maintaining its calm demeanor, follows the shooter without haste. When he reaches the man, he is on the ground with his leg caught in an animal trap, begging for his life. The scene of the man's death is not shown, but the bloody hands of our strange friend suggest that he meets a gruesome end. Our peculiar friend then takes the gold necklace, which has Bastard number 1 inch engraved on it, and continues his journey through the forest, passing by the man's blood-stained hat. As night falls, this wandering spirit-like figure continues to roam the forest. With his sensitive hearing, he picks up the sound of gunfire and head towards it. The scene then shifts to a group of young men and women who seem to be couples. After some shooting practice, they are all sitting around a campfire, chatting, laughing, and making sexual jokes. One of them, named Aaron, started telling a story about a series of creepy and bizarre events and murders that no one has ever been able to understand the reason behind those killings and how this person has managed to kill so many people. In a way, he wanted to scare the others, but they realized he was lying and laughed at him. Then Aurora told them to take a group photo together. They put out the fire and left from there. Then our strange killer, who had come back from the dead and his name is Johnny, continued on his way, as if an evil spirit had possessed his decaying body. He picked up something sharp as a weapon to kill people, and passed by a cabin where the girls and boys were inside. He listened to their conversations quietly among the trees. Some of them were throwing accusations at Aaron, and telling him that he was going to meet with those girls at the gas station for sex. Then the killer, Johnny, calmly moved towards him while listening to music with his headphones. Suddenly, he ambushed him from behind with a saw and gruesomely sliced his mouth all the way to the end, decapitating him and committing a horrifying murder. He then takes his lifeless body to a place that seems filled with welding tools and equipment. There he notices a peculiar mask that catches his eye. He throws the corpse toward it to break the glass and retrieves the mask. He then puts the mask on and continues on his way. Throughout the entire night, he wanders through the forest, tireless as he is not human. Suddenly he is drawn by some noises and spots 2 girls from the camp on the other side of the pond. One is in the water while the other, Aurora, is outside, and they seem to be having a conversation with apparent homosexual undertones. The girl in the water suggests having sex with Aurora, planning to do so after Aurora finishes her workout on the mountain. Johnny, the killer, embeds his axe into a tree stump and directly enters the water, moving underwater to avoid being seen. After a few minutes, he reaches the poor girl who was swimming and drags her underwater, likely suffocating her. As her body floats to the surface, he makes his way directly toward his next victim, Aurora. Interestingly, he seems to have a keen sense of smell like a dog, able to detect humans from miles away. His sharp ears can hear from great distances. He approaches the top of the mountain where Aurora is practicing yoga and meditation. Hearing footsteps, Aurora thinks her girlfriend has arrived to surprise her. However, when she looks back, she screams in terror. She considers jumping off the cliff but is too scared. He stealthily approaches Aurora from behind and drives the hook he is holding into her back, pulling it out through her stomach. He then forcefully drives it into her head, yanking the chain until her neck breaks and her head comes out through her stomach, creating a grotesquely psychotic and nauseating murder scene. He then throws her body off the mountain. We then see Johnny moving through the forest in a manner eerily reminiscent of video game characters. I think the filmmakers have a peculiar fondness for video games. Later, he becomes aware of a commotion where a group is arguing and fighting. They drop a key, which lands at Johnny's feet. He picks up the key, finding it intriguing, and watches it from behind a tree. The key has a toy car keychain attached to it. This is the only scene in the film where we get a clear view of Johnny's hideous and terrifying face, which looks like a fully reanimated corpse with completely colorless white eyes. At that moment, one of them comes looking for the key, unaware that Johnny has it. However, he notices an axe on the ground and tells the rest of his friends, "A few of us are missing. I'm sure someone is hunting and killing us." Johnny then puts his hat and mask back on, standing up for a new round of human slaughter. In his first move, he picks up a piece of wood and places it on a car horn, causing a continuous honking sound to draw his intended victims towards the car. He then sneaks up on a man named Troy, hitting his legs with the axe. Just as he is about to kill him, his friend Ivan arrives with a gun, shooting Johnny twice. Johnny falls to the ground, breathing but motionless. Ivan helps his friend and they move away together. However, after a few minutes, the demonic killer rises from the ground. In his first act, he throws an axe that decapitates Ivan on the spot, killing him instantly. He then uses a heavy rock to crush and explode Troy's head, who was already injured, by throwing it down on him from above. Johnny, being a lover of necklaces, remembers that Troy had one when he was sneakily watching him. He reaches into Troy's pocket, hoping to find it, when Troy's friends, Chris and her boyfriend Colt, show up. Johnny quickly pulls the axe out of Ivan's head and throws it at Chris, but his aim is off, and it narrowly misses her. They wisely flee immediately, and Johnny, being quite slow, can't catch up to them, so he turns back. Johnny, like a character from a video game, roams the forest until dusk falls and darkness envelops everything. As previously described, he has the ability to smell humans from miles away, much like a dog. He makes his way to a ranger station, where Chris and her boyfriend have taken refuge with a ranger who has a gun and is wearing a ranger's uniform. The ranger guy tells them, "I know this bastard. He's killed my friends before, and I've shot him several times, but he keeps coming back." Suddenly, Johnny rushes toward them, but the ranger man shoots him several times, causing Johnny to fall once again. The ranger then tells his friend to bring chains to bind Johnny's hands and feet, but as soon as he gets close, Johnny grabs his hand and throws the gun away. Chris and her boyfriend run away. Johnny then stands up and, while the ranger is on the ground, applies tremendous pressure to the ranger's spine with just his hands, completely paralyzing him. He then hits the ranger man by impaling him with a hook through his chest and drags him back to the lumber mill. Johnny first fiddles with the machinery to ensure the lumber mill's equipment is sharp and deadly. Satisfied with its readiness, he proceeds to gruesomely dismember the paralyzed ranger in 2 stages. The ranger, fully conscious but unable to move, watches in horror as Johnny first amputates his hand and then places his neck under the machine, decapitating him completely. Johnny then leaves the scene. The restless spirit of our story once again roams the forest to eliminate the last survivors. Suddenly, he hears the voices of Colt and Chris. Johnny stops in his tracks as Colt taunts him, saying, "Find me! You can't kill me, asshole!" Colt then suddenly appears behind Johnny, sensing the presence with his heightened 6th sense. Johnny turns around and brutally crushes Colt's head with the axe, striking repeatedly until nothing is left of Colt's head. This horrifying scene is witnessed by Chris from a short distance away. Quietly, she sits down, removes her necklace, and places it on a gasoline bottle they had planned to use to set Johnny on fire, then flees. In the darkness of the night, terrified and alone, she starts running and screaming like a madwoman. Her foot gets caught in an animal trap, causing a severe injury and heavy bleeding. She finally manages to free herself and limps towards the forest road. As she walks along the road, a car passes by and Chris waves for help. The female driver assists her into the car and they drive off. After a short while, the driver asks Chris what happened to her. Chris tells her that animals attacked her. The woman then shares a story about an animal attack on her friend. Suddenly, Chris loses consciousness due to severe blood loss. The woman stops the car, but Chris begs her to keep driving, saying she can hold on until they reach the hospital. The woman ties a tourniquet on Chris's leg to stop the bleeding, and Chris, terrified, keeps glancing around, afraid that the murderous Johnny might suddenly appear. The film ends with a shot of the forest, showing the gasoline bottle without Chris's necklace on it, suggesting that Johnny is still out there hunting for his next victim. The implication is that he might one day find and kill Chris.